I think they can hear me now. Can you guys hear me? Mark Kennedy?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much.
Okay,
and I
then
see
I'm
that
gonna
you
hang up with you. All right,
Okay.
so we're good. I'm not gonna have a visual, but at least I'm on the phone call. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Fantastic. All right, so I think we're ready to start the session. Thank you so much all for joining us. My name is Sharon Vanek. I'm the Executive Director of the California-Israel Chamber of Commerce. And I am very happy and I'm thrilled for this session. We have a very interesting program for today. Basically, we're going to talk about channel distribution in the US agriculture market, the structure, who you need to know, how does it work, you know, how to introduce new technologies, who is the person we want to talk with. And we have a fantastic panel of speakers that join us today. But, you know, I use the word panel, but it's really, we want to open it to a discussion. We want you guys to, if possible, share your camera with us so we can see you. Don't be shy, ask questions. We want to really try and use the next 60 minutes to not only hear from our esteemed speakers today, but we also want to get your questions, because really our purpose today is to help all of you to better understand how things work here. For that purpose, we have a wonderful moderator for this morning. We have Vered Israeli. Vered, hi Vered, nice to see you.
Hey Sharon, hey everyone.
Okay, Vered, for those of you who do not know, started in tech, like many other founders in the ag tech. You know, she came from a completely different sector and developed a product that eventually was introduced to the ag market. And once she tried to, you know, get connections and understand the market and sell her product, she was facing a lot of questions. So we are going to, you know, join Vered and the rest of the speakers to hear, you know, about all the questions and the issues and how she solved it. And again, as I said, for that purpose, we have with us Dennis Donohue. Hi, Dennis. Good morning. Dennis is the head of the Innovation Center of Western Growers. And I will let our speakers actually to introduce themselves in a second. So Dennis, why don't we start with you? Can you tell us a few words about yourself?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Donohue, and I am the director of Western Growers Center for Innovation and Technology. And prior to doing that, I was in the produce industry for some 30 plus years. In the last half of my career, I was a specialty vegetable grower shipper, and then prior to that, I worked for a couple of the larger shipping firms, and then processors, including Fresh Express, and then along with that, I somehow stumbled into being the mayor of Salinas from 2006 to 2012, and I mention that only because ag tech was really kind of part of an economic development strategy, and in terms of we wanted to take advantage of our proximity to the Silicon Valley. So in terms of being involved. The ag tech space, using some of the nomenclature. You know, I've been a grower, and then I've had really the privilege and good fortune to be involved with the Innovation Center the last 4 years, but I've also been involved in it from an economic development standpoint as well. So that's my background.
Fantastic, thank you, Dennis. You are a true, you know, mover, shaker of the ag tech around here. That's for sure. And not just here, and we will hear more about Western Growers and your role in the, you know, the entire U.S. market. I want to also introduce, we have Mark Kennedy. Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for finding the time to be with us. Mark is the president of Green Rubber Kennedy Ag. It's a big distribution, agriculture equipment distribution. And Mark, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your operation.
Yes, I can. I'm very sorry I didn't get my picture up there. I put on my favorite shirt this morning too, so I impressed all of you. But Yeah, Green River Kennedy Ag has been around since the early 90s. My partner and I started it. We basically have 100 team members. We have 6 retail locations to service farmers. And one of the main things we do is we manufacture conveyor belts. So we're basically servicing the ag industry, mostly vegetable crops, berries, grapes. We don't really mess too much with the Midwest type crops. I would say we almost food processing would be the correct terminology, but we are in the production part of the business, the harvesting part of the business, and the processing. And the locations allow us to just be a big hardware store for the farmers that we take care of, and we carry inventory, and we are in all the right regions. So that's what we've been doing, and I'm really excited to be part of this morning.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. And you mentioned the word hardware, and we are going to later discuss about hardware and high tech, and how we introduce all of this to our farmers. I want to move to our next guest, which Luis de la Garza. He's the general manager of Royal Berries. It's a company that sells berries to Driscoll, and I'm sure there are so many people here that envy you, Luis. They want to know how to do that, how to sell to Driscoll. Can you please introduce yourself in few words? You just need to unmute yourself, Luis. You are muted, Luis.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. So my name is Luis de la Garza, General Manager of Royal Oaks Farms and Rancho Royal Oaks. We grow berries for Driscoll's. We grow the 4 commodities. We grow strawberries, conventional and organic. We grow raspberries organic, blackberries organic, and blueberries organic. We have been in business for more than 65 years. So Clint Miller is the founder, and also was the CEO for Driscoll in the 70s. We are here located in Watsonville, where pretty much Driscoll started. So beautiful weather, this year we're waiting for rain. Hopefully we'll have some rain, but in general, the weather is just incredible for the berries. So happy to be here with all of you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Luis, for taking the time this morning to speak with us. Last but not least, we have Walt. Walt is the VP Innovation in Western Growers Center of Innovation. Walt did a whole circle growing on a farm, being an investor, now looking for a new innovation. Hi, Walt. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, folks. Hi, Sharon. It's exactly right. I've got the similar background to Dennis and the others. I've got history in ag with the 5th generation family farm in South Monterey County. We do cattle, wine grapes, and specialty crops. And then I've got a 25-year career in Silicon Valley working with startups, including eBay and 2 others that got acquired over the years. And the last couple of years have been working with Dennis and WJ at Thrive, building the accelerator. And then joined Western Growers about a month and a half ago as VP of Innovation to work with the startups and try and help them accelerate their efforts. So it made sense when Sharon and I were talking about what we could do for some of the startups in Israel to put together something like this, because we did something similar for it with Dennis and Mark and a couple other panelists last year for the Thrive guys. So I think this kind of content is great for startups, and really happy to have Sharon putting this together.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so now that we have some idea about the speakers that we have this morning, I want to do some clean house before we start. So Verity is going to be the moderator. She prepared some questions, but we really want to hear from you folks. We want the people that are on the call to join in and ask questions. So feel free to unmute yourself. It will be great if we can see you. If it's not possible, we'll keep staring at a, black square, which is also fine. But please don't be shy and ask questions. Vered, how about first question? I'll give you the mic.
Hey, Sharon. All right, thank you. So, as Sharon mentioned, my name is Vered. I'm a co-founder and the general manager of Vibes Israeli R&D site. We are dealing so much with finding the right distribution channels to get to our customers, which are mostly seed breeding organizations, grain research centers, and food processing companies. We offer them our food safety solution. So I'm really excited about this webinar or discussion today. Dennis, we will start with you. Can you give us a brief introduction to the Western Growers Center of Innovation and Technology? Like, what is your organization part in connecting between the farmers in California to the newest technologies?
Sure. Western Growers, just, and I recognize a number of you on the call, but for those of you who don't know, and having mentioned that I was in the produce industry for a number of years, like all of you, regardless of your backgrounds, you're typically involved with any number of trade groups. But Western Growers is particularly important for this moment in time around specialty crop ag, and so couple quick definition of terms. In our neck of the woods, specialty crop ag are those items that are not subsidized, go to market, take a risk. So, in broad strokes, the Midwest tends to just do business differently with the commodities. The Western Growers Group, our membership, California, Arizona, Colorado based, is we're basically the fresh fruit, vegetable, and nut folks. And we're responsible for some number between 50 to 60% of North America's fresh fruit and vegetable and nut production. And what's particularly unique about Western Growers is that its board members are either presidents or principals of their organizations. So they really are the decision makers. And about 6 years ago, we've been up and running just under 5 years now, the board felt in order to be to meet the challenges of the future, and agriculture typically we're reacting, because we generally got enough to do trying to grow things, much less keep up with the government, as it were. And so in order to be competitive for the future, the board felt we needed a strategy that embraced technology and innovation on a go-forward basis. The physical manifestation of that strategy is the Innovation Center in Salinas. Salinas for a couple reasons. One, the proximity to the Silicon Valley. Two, Salinas and its ecosystem was really kind of one of the early in players on the whole ag tech conversation. And so when we set up the Innovation Center, really it had one goal in mind, was to try and accelerate solutions for our grower members and provide connection to the marketplace. And so what I tell folks is our value proposition is market access, the products, as it were, are engagement strategies to connect entrepreneurs such as those on the screen with our grower members, an array of business services, and then we've kind of tried to flip the networking business. It's tended to be very geared towards investors, which is good. We know folks want to get closer to growers, so we try and emphasize our networking in key production areas. So in very broad strokes, we're here to help you, all of those I'm looking at that I can see or not see, get connected with their prospective customer base.
Right, thank you, Dennis, for presenting Western Growers. Jonathan, I saw your question, so we will in a few seconds. No, you did not. Okay, so for those
he's a friend. He's waving.
Oh, okay. For those who aren't aware, Israel is at forefront of food and ag innovation technology in the California area. We just wanted to bring more of this amazing Israeli technologies, right, to the US. So I hope that in the end of this webinar, our audience will get some answers and some practical ideas of where to start, just like Dennis just helped us with, and who they can contact to in order to get some access to the distribution channels. So my next question is to you, Luis. So there is the farmers that wants to get to the retail, right? In between there are the distributors, or maybe a few levels of distributing. We want to know to whom we are selling the technology. Is it to the farmer? Is it to the distributor? Or even maybe we sell it to the retail company and they are affecting on the suppliers?
So I think depends on what kind of technology, right? So for us, we sell all the berries for Driscoll's, and Driscoll is a good leader as far as bringing technology to all the growers. No, they do business across I don't know how many countries. So every time they see a good technology that can add value in the whole supply chain, from the nursery to the grower, to the landowner, to the shipper, or to the DCs. So they want to bring it together. So I will say there's some technology, for example, for us on the payroll, in our systems, in our hiring process, in the food safety, that's unique for the grower, but also need to be connected with Driscoll's. Another example is a system that we need to report the pesticide we use. We need to report it to Driscoll, and we need to report it to the county to make sure that the fruit is free of any residues, depending on different markets. China has different regulation, the UK, France, Japan. So that's the technology. I will say, and also, for the future, like Dennis was saying about the regulations. So we are gonna need to report, or we are reporting the water usage and all the fertilizers that we use for the ag waiver that we have in our area. So that's another, area that having better technology is easier for us to track. So I think I went around, but yeah, depends what type of technology. Some will kind of match with the grower and the shipper. Some is unique for the grower. Some is unique for the shipper. No.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Luis. It's really interesting to see your point of view about that. So I would like to ask Mark the same question, but from the distributor point of view. Do you agree with Luis' perspective? Like, as a distributor of the technological equipment, you're exactly in the middle between the farmers and the technology makers. So where do you find the misunderstandings between the needs of the farmers and the new technologies that are offered to them?
I think Luis had it right. Most of the growers are connected with the shipper who is, producing the label, shipping the product to market. Growers sitting there on the production side. So you've got, there's the mechanical side of the business, then there's the data side of the business to make better decisions with the data that you have. And Luis was on the regulatory environment in California that really amped up recently in requirement of information. So there is opportunities in all three of those areas. In the mechanical side, just highlighting regions that have had success coming to California, there's a lot of European mechanical equipment in not necessarily harvesting, but I'd say tillage and transplant machines and things like that have been quite successful coming into the market. Most of the time, those pieces of equipment are being purchased by either the harvesting company or they're being purchased directly by the grower themselves. So in the end, it's very important that whoever the company is, that they get to the grower, the correct grower, the early adopters, as we call them, those that are at the bleeding edge, that are interested in the latest technology that's out there. They want to hear about it, and they're willing to spend the time and energy with the company to try it out. When you talk about the distribution channel of how to get to that grower, there's been a lot of activity recently of ag tech companies coming to our market. And I would say there's a little bit of fatigue at this point from a lot of the growers that, there are a lot of times being spent, but they're not getting the actual end product that they were looking for. So without going into too much detail, there is a couple companies out there that are trying to be somewhat of a clearinghouse. And I would say Dennis Donohue and his operation with the Western Grower Innovation Center is part of that clearinghouse. And then you get to distributors such as myself and a couple others in our industry that we're trusted by the growers. They're willing to allow us to vet companies and then bring them a final product if possible.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So you were talking about the early adopters, and it leads me to my next question to Walt. Walt, I would like to ask you, the agriculture market is known as an old-fashioned market. We still see a lot of manual work there. I guess there are farmers who are the early adopters, like Mark said before, but there are farmers that will still want to do things in the old traditional way, I guess. I can definitely see it when we at Vibe are trying to bring our technology to customers. So some are thrilled to see our solutions, and some customers feel that it is too innovative for them. Sometimes it can be challenging to earn their trust in the technology. So how do you feel the field? What is the percentage of the early adopters out there? And how many of the customers are still, using their own methods, and it will be, they are hard to get farmers? And how can we make them change their mind, maybe?
It's the right question, Vered. Exactly. How do we get these farmers to try some new things? And I think for the most part, farmers have a bad reputation because the farmers we work with, the Mondavi company has been using Palanque harvesters for wine grapes for 20 years on our acreage. Jerry Robb is setting the standard for leafy greens food safety with companies like McDonald's for years, right? In terms of field perimeter traps, testing the soil, the water, the product. I mean, all of this stuff is world-class across big networks. And I would say the reason farmers are so hesitant to test and adopt new technology is not because they don't like new technology. It's because most of them have gotten burned a couple of times and they have some big scars. And I'll put a fine point on Mark's comment. I think they're more than burned out. I think they're shutting the door in some cases and trusting. That was a key word for Mark's comment a minute ago, the trusted advisors. If you're a startup in Israel and you want to sell into the Salinas Valley to the specialty crop market, because of course you do, because you heard the numbers from Dennis on how big we are, you better come in with a trusted advisor and a really good story of the test that you've run and the math that you got from the tests, right? If you come saying, look at my cool machine, they're not going to take your call. Now, if you come with someone like Mark, and Mark's the trusted advisor to that operator, he's going to know how they operate. He's going to know how they like to buy. So we're big advocates for coming to the U.S. market via channels like Mark. And we just think it's going to be a better experience for the farmer who doesn't have to talk to 100 of you. It's going to be a better experience for Mark because he has a sales opportunity and he can be that vetting resource. And it's a better opportunity for the startup because you don't want to try and create that relationship that some of these folks already have. You just need to work with them and find them. And to the earlier point, that's what Western Growers is trying to be more in the middle of. We want to help facilitate those. We know it's a key requirement for startups to move faster. So I think the way that we get farmers to adopt more technology is by actually not pushing them, but by working with trusted advisors they already trust to bring them along in a smoother manner.
Okay, so trusted advisor, this is your biggest tip, right? Sometimes also entrepreneurs go to you and you're testing their technology, and then you become their trusted advisor and connecting to the, to the customers, to the potential customers.
Right. So what Western Growers does for the members of the center, as Dennis described, is we connect them with the right folks to get to market. So Dennis can introduce a startup to either a grower or a dealer, a distributor like Mark. And it's really a judgment call based on where the startup's at and knowing the dealers like we do. So we're not in the middle of the economics of the transaction. We're just a facilitator to make the communication happen, right? The whole goal for us is to get a productive conversation between the startups and the eventual buyer. And that's just one quick plug. You know, you heard some of this a little bit from Luis, a little bit from Mark. It's a really, I mean, I've worked in e-commerce for years with startups. I've worked in enterprise software. E-commerce and enterprise software are reputed to be hard, but they are not hard compared to ag, right? You've got the grower, you've got the shipper, you've got the producer, brand, you've got the end user customer, the franchise or the restaurant or the grocery store that's doing this. And you need to know where you're going to sell your stuff. Well, that's the job of the trusted advisors. And unless you know that as well as they do, again, it's going to make a lot of sense to work with them, not try and go through and go around them. I mean, here's an example. We work with a lot of harvest automation startups. There's a lot of contract growers in Salinas Valley that grow the crop, but do not harvest. So who are you selling the harvest automation solution to? The grower, the harvester, the shipper, the labor contractor that's doing it as a service? There's a lot of complexity in this marketplace, and that's where Western Growers tries to help make sense of it all.
Thank you. Yes, it's a long supply chain out there.
And the other thing I would just quickly throw in is, and Mark does a terrific job. Our role also is to expand everybody's reach. So we like the idea of, you know, frankly, positioning ourselves as the landing spot. And, you know, we don't hesitate to say, hey, you should be talking to somebody like Mark. But even Mark will, or a grower, you know, even somebody as big as Driscoll, who Luis represents, I've yet to find anybody who comes into the country and goes, hey, I got a deal with Driscoll, I'm all done. And, you know, and Luis is not paid to think about lettuce, almonds, et cetera. And the nature of our network is to help you broaden your base, to get you into Arizona, to get you into Colorado, to get you into other commodities. So and then you heard a little bit about Walt's background. Not only do you need to meet customers, it could be you've got something ready to sell because you're already in market in Israel and you just want to expand the marketplace, but you may also need co-development work and feedback. You may want additional financial introductions and that type of thing. We have a tech advisory group if there's business development support you need. So the idea is to just make resources available to hit all of the elements that are involved in business success, not just meeting the grower, because there's other things involved, as I'm sure most of you know.
I think Luis has something to say also about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I will add, I think that trusted advisor is very important. And, you know, we face, you know, new vendors every day. You know, everybody's selling, you know, the best technology and a lot of solutions. But to me, we need to identify who's the user, and there is a gap. So right now in our industry, we're behind. So our people, for example, irrigating the crops, they have some experience doing everything with the hands, right? So if you give them a phone, it's gonna take some time. So what I'm looking is somebody that's gonna help transform. So I'm not looking for a transaction that I just buy technology and that's it. I'm looking for a transition, somebody that will walk with me and transform the industry. And depends on the situation, it can take you know, years to do that. So it's not a transaction that okay, here is you know, the business, you buy it and that's it. No?
Yes. And I'm sorry, I'm jumping in again. I'm sorry, Vered. There is a question from Elon, which relates to the things we just heard. Elon, do you want to ask your question or do you want me to read it from the chat box?
Yeah, sure, no problem. First of all, I must say from my personal perspective that being able to be in touch with Dennis and his Western Growers Center of Innovation and Technology was very beneficial for our company, and I strongly recommend for anybody that can to try and be in touch with this very, very impressive hub. My question was about something that I think may be relevant for many of us here, at least the startup companies, and this is about the potential financial loss when we come and try to do tries and field tries and demos and whatever at the customer's location. Of course, we are optimistic, otherwise we were not in this business, and we hope that our products and solution would work. We overpromise a little bit, that's also part of the business. But when it comes to the practical real-life work, there is a fair question about what happens if things are not going as well as you expected. And this can easily come up to very significant numbers. 1 acre that was lost, or 2 or 5, easily with the high value fruit and vegetables can come to significant numbers. Startup companies by nature, we don't have really the resources to cover up on those potential losses. And therefore, my question to the forum, the others, was about how to try and mitigate those liability issues when it comes to really work and change some things at the growers.
Walt, maybe I think you can answer on that.
I can give a little answer. I'm very curious to what Louis and Mark have to say on this one. From our perspective, from WGA's perspective, and I will admit to the group, I'm a recovering lawyer with a law degree from Santa Clara, but don't practice. So grain of salt on this. But I would say this, the key to mitigating that risk, because you're right, it's real. And in the eyes of the grower, the startup may disappear, but the damage to the crop would live on, right? I think the key to mitigating it is a very good pre-trial discussion and negotiation to get everything papered correctly. So everyone knows in the test agreement, this is what we're testing. These are the risks. This is who owns the risk, right? I think the more specific you are about that before the test, the better off you're going to be. And that means a lot of cases, I would argue, delaying the test to get 2 things done: mitigate the risk by doing the right paper, and then set the baseline before you do the test so you know what you're measuring against. And then you get to define success with numbers, not with stories, because the numbers go a lot further. So I would say you mitigate it by increasing the chances for success with numbers and by taking more time to do the agreement before you test.
Okay, thank you, Walt. Elon?
Mark?
This is Mark Kennedy. So I'll pipe in and say that, like earlier we talked about on the innovation and technology keeps coming. There's the data side and software, and then mechanical. I can speak more to the mechanical side, and Elon hit right on it. It's very difficult for these growers. So, for example, we were working directly with a couple different spray companies that had some new style equipment. Well, the only thing we could spray on the crop was water, so we were having to try and fit it in between their operations and being able to go and run the equipment through the field. Farmers don't like a lot of equipment running back and forth through their field because it creates compaction and all sorts of things. But you've really got to have a plan, like Walt was saying, how you're going to work with that specific grower. And again, it's working with somebody who knows the customers who are interested, who are going to want to take and spend that time, energy, and money. A lot of times what the companies that want to do their testing don't realize is the amount of labor that has to be put into it, because you've got to have the farm manager, a couple people that might be working for the company, be part of this work that's being done to try this piece of machinery. So there is time, energy, and money on their side, and being respectful of that and making sure that when you come out, you're all ready to go and there's a process. And what we try and do is not just do it for one grower. Usually it can be collaborative, and we call 5 or 6 growers in to see it in one field. Most of the guys in the valley are more than willing to share any new technology. We all get together and witness it, and then be able to verify the results. And once you find, I think Elon was talking about it, once you find that your results aren't producing what the customer or even yourself hope to see, it's time to back off and readjust, because spending more time is not going to fix that problem, because you've lost the interest there real quick.
Thank you, Mark. I can see another question from Emma. Emma, you wanted to ask something about establishing a pilot also?
Yes, good evening or good morning. Thank you very much for your participation and for your time and excellent information that I hear from you. Our company focuses on the post-harvest technology, on the extending of shelf life, especially for berries. And we are looking for establishing of pilot and contacts on cooperation on this technology. Who can be potential partner for us?
Yeah, I think, you know, we as a grower, but we work very close with Driscoll. So I think Driscoll, we can help you connect. We are always looking for ways to improve the fruit that we supply to the customer. That's the mission, you know. For us as a grower, I don't want my fruit to arrive to the dock at Driscoll's. I want my fruit to arrive to the table of the family and they enjoy it. So sometimes with technology like that, we can start a little bit small to test it and then prove it, and then we can involve Driscoll. So either way, we can be helpful there. And again, like we were saying, the key is start small, prove the technology, and then we can go, because we have seen a lot of mistakes. We start very big. We, you know, like Ellen was saying, we waste a lot of money and time. So if we start small, we prove it, you know, with science behind, I think it's easier to flow.
Excellent, excellent. It is exactly what we are looking, why we are looking for a partner on the establishment of these pilots and planning of it, and understanding what is the success criteria and different kind of questions that should be concluded before. Luis, are you open to connection? I can connect after these discussions. Thank you very much.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you have my email, but definitely we can send you email address and phone numbers.
We will take care of that.
This is great. This is a great start, Emma. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
We have another question from Daniel. Daniel?
Hi, thank you. You hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much for this today. It's been really instructive. I really appreciate the time that you put into this. I have a question about sustainability and sustainability solutions. You spoke earlier about who the right targets were to speak to, whether it be the farmer or any other type of sort of ancillary provider. So we're focused on food and waste recycling. Is that currently on the ground the obligation of the farmer, or are there other sort of companies that work around them that manage this process?
I did not really.
That's my question.
Well, let me jump in on that. If you're talking about food loss or food waste as it relates to, you know, at the farm level, you know, it's my favorite ag phrase. It depends, and it really starts with who owns the crop. You know, and typically what we call a grower, shipper, or processor has the product's either under contract or it's been financed by a grower shipper. Typically, growers are not 100% financed, and then they just, you know, see how it goes. Nothing goes in the ground without a plan, and somebody owns the crop. So the answer will be it depends, but it's typically a grower shipper or a processor. If a processor has a contract, and for the sake of conversation, it's lettuce, they take what they want, because that's usually a per pound basis. I mean, if there were to be an aftermarket, but typically what you're going to find, and I know this frustrates a lot of people, usually it's not worth it financially to go back and get something that's quote unquote left over. That's just really kind of not how the game works.
Thank you, Danny.
And then maybe we can understand a little deeper exactly what the value is, if that's okay, Dennis.
Yeah, you know, Luis and Mark and Walt may have a slightly different perspective, but I think, well, like I say, nobody plans on overplanting, and if for some reason you're long or there's excess, chances are that's happening with everybody. So you've got kind of some depressed conditions. So which just lessens the financial incentive to go in and get things.
Okay.
Okay, so it's great. We're having a great discussion. Is there anyone else that have a question or so? No. All right, so we can move on. My next question is to Mark. Mark, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
That's great. I'm curious about how you choose what technology to sell. Like mostly, are these the farmers that are seeking for a solution and then you're looking for the technology, or it's the startups and the technology makers mostly presenting their solution and then you are going back to the farmers and trying to interest them?
Again, I'm basically on the equipment side of this deal, but I've been to, there's the Forbes Ag Tech and Western Growers really seems to be the landing spot of a lot of these companies that want to get into the market and start doing and testing their products. So for us, we're looking for the ones that might have already done some work in the specialty crop industry. We're very wary of companies that are coming from the Midwest that are, into corn, wheat, and soybeans, and that's been where they've had their success. And just specialty crops are so different in the way that we operate. I mean, in the world of specialty crops, and back to what the previous conversation was, there's no interest in harvesting a crop that's been sitting, that's left over, because immediately that day they're going to start disking that crop and getting ready to plant again. So the industry moves so fast and so quick, unlike the Midwest where, if you're growing wheat, you can wait 3 or 4 days to spray and you might not want to water yet or what. It just doesn't happen like that in our industry. It's going so quickly. And that is on our end. The companies that we want to work with are those that are prepared and have got a proven product in a crop like ours, okay, not the Midwest crops. So we've had some success. I would say on the mechanical side, you've got 2 or 3 companies that have really proven themselves here. The growers have become quite trusting of those companies. One of them is a company that has an automated weeder type situation. There's another company who's brought in some mechanical harvesting equipment that's been done well, mechanical transplanting equipment. But again, it goes back to that particular company and their willingness to really dig in. For every 1 or 2 that's been successful, there's been 7 to 10 that just didn't work in our crops. The ground here, and we have to go in when it's wet. It can be dry. So that piece of equipment, what happens a lot of times, if there's any variable in the moisture of the soil, that piece of equipment doesn't work very well, and it's a non-starter right from that point. So it's a unique place when you start talking about specialty crops, lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, and the way we operate. And because we're supplying almost the entire country, it's not, you don't really grow vegetables anywhere else but in the coastal California and maybe a little bit in Florida and some of the homegrown spots. But the volume is very large and it moves very, very fast. And then, like we talked earlier, there's the production side, and then you're going to the harvesting, and then you're going to post-harvest, and then once it gets to the shipper processor, you know, every variable in there, there's technology that is required, and everybody wants it at this point. They just are struggling to find the companies that will come and spend the time and energy necessary to get us there. I mean, our market is large, but in comparison to the Midwest and how big soybeans and corn and other things are, you know, we're not as big as far as dollar value as they are. So sometimes we don't get the attention we wish we could get from entrepreneurs.
Okay, interesting. There is a question from Ron to Dennis. Dennis, Ron is asking if you can share with us a good success story.
Well, you know, one of the things I tell folks, and success has kind of a couple of different interpretations, particularly as it relates to the ag tech world, because, you know, not that many people have crossed the finish line. So, you know, that idea that it's a journey, I tend to look at it, who is succeeding? And one of the things I tell folks is we're not going to take the place of a sales organization per se, but some folks need a little more support as they get started, particularly when they're entering the market for the first time, as some of you are. But one of the companies I like is, Mark alluded to, there's a harvest automation company that came into the center a couple years ago and basically said, and they were working on thinning and weeding, but always had an idea that we're going to get to harvesting and look at things sequentially. And so they came in and said, can you introduce us to growers? We did that. You know, we made some calls, and then they were able to get the product development feedback they needed. And he has a great video that I like, the fellow who started the company, where he shows he built something, and he said, I knew this was not what anyone was going to buy, but I had to build something to show something so I could get the feedback. And then the video ends with, and so this is what I built for round 2. And then in the second season, they did that. And then as they get to the third season, they get closer. And concurrently with that, I'm being asked can you talk to my financial people? Can you let them know who I'm talking to, what companies I'm working with? And so 3 years later, you know, they're $20 million down the road. You know, as the former mayor of Salinas, I was very excited when they decided to locate in Salinas. And golly gee whiz, we'd like to hire 30 people if we can find them. So I think that's a good example of how the center is going to work. I will specifically name one company, Augian Robotics, who is working with the Table Grape Commission. So they have a product called the Burrow. They came out here. We helped with some introductions. They went through the Thrive program. And so one of our Ag Tech X events, which typically includes kind of a field component, we introduced the group to to some of the key growers, the Table Grape Commission, and so they started working closely with them, and one thing led to another, and last I heard they had an order for 100, you know, that type of thing, and that's a harvest aid project. So that's kind of how the program works. We've got a couple people on on the call right now. You know, I always tell people when it comes to grower engagement, there's a concierge service, which is me. It's very personal. If patience is required, it's not always efficient as we'd like. And then there's the trial network that we're working on building that's a little more formal, but the basic idea, but those would be two examples, and that's the process. And Walt may have some thoughts on that in terms of what we're trying to do, but I think Walt has a great perspective on, you know, this idea of how fast things go and who really succeeds. Patience is a virtue in this process.
Well, no, that's right, Dennis, and I'll echo everything you just said, and even put a finer point on it. I think the key to doing well in this valley is the classic startup challenge. And I would push all of you to refamiliarize yourself with a couple of resources. Number one is Lean Startup. That's the methodology of quick iterations and minimum viable products. Really important to get farmer feedback. And like Dennis said, version 1.0 may not be the one you sell to the farmers eventually, but it gets the conversation started. Second is Crossing the Chasm, which is, I'm dating myself, from the 90s. But Jeffrey Moore wrote it, and there's books beyond it. And its sole focus is saying that for new technology adoption, that's what all of you guys are doing, right? Every startup selling ag tech is asking the farmer to change their operation, to do something better and different, right? In the case of thinning, the original value proposition was, I'm going to replace that 25-person thinning crew with a thinning robot that's going to do it all for you. And as one of our grower partners will tell you from my ranch, if I'd known how hard thinning was going to be, they were one of the first. If I'd known how hard it was going to be, I probably wouldn't have started. But now that I've got it for 10 years and it's working, I can't imagine life without it. Welcome to ag tech, right? Along the way, he learned that what you have is an expensive piece of equipment, and you replace those 25 harvest labor, thinning laborers, not with 0, but with 3 higher skilled, higher priced people, right? So if the startup had known that in advance and could have sold it, you can still sell 25 for 3. It's a different value proposition than 25 for 0, but you would have had a much better relationship with this farmer had you said that going in. So I think, you know, knowing exactly what you're selling and exactly the problem you're solving is the key to make the farmer's life and decision making easier, and to make Mark's and your channel partners easier. And I would say, again, you'll hear me say this broken record, understand the economics, right? In the case of thinning, what is that 25-person crew cost? What's that 3-person crew going to cost? And what's the maintenance and service on the machine going to cost? When you test it, how much are you saving? What's the time involved? As Mark will tell you, did people have to watch the machine? Did people have to be on site some level of time? I mean, understand all of the costs, because the farmers are going to understand down to the penny, because they have to. They fight for pennies and nickels in the Salinas Valley, and empires are made on those pennies and nickels. So you need to understand it at that same level if you're selling to them. And I think Lean Startup and Crossing the Chasm, where you pick one thing that you do better than anybody else and go after it, being a subject matter expert in your innovation area is key for these guys.
You know, I think Ron asked a really important question, and if time permits, I mean, I think asking Mark and Louise, what does success look like to you, and how often do you see it, is really important in terms of providing some perspective to pick up on Walt's. You know, those 10-year overnight success stories are great, but you know, Louise and Mark, I think what does success really look like to you from a perspective, from your standpoint, and how often does it happen?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lou.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Yeah, for me, I mean, this year, no, with the COVID-19, you know, put us, you know, in big challenges for us. So sometimes you need to adopt technology, even if you don't want. So just a quick example, the toilets. We use a portable toilet that we haul to the field, and none of them were, you know, hands-free. So with this situation, we needed to react quick. So that's technology that you need to be creative and you solve, and you have some of your vendors ready for you to help under those circumstances. That's a quick, you know, solution, and it was very successful. No? We were able to change everything in 3 weeks. So, but sometimes it's a long term, you know. The harvest machine that we have for the strawberries has been, I don't know, Dennis, maybe 5-6 years now, and it's making little steps. It may not be ready in 5 years, but we know we need that. We don't have enough people to harvest our crops, and it's a tough job, so we need to replace. So, little steps in that regard is a success. And in that way, sometimes learning or failing with some prototypes is a success, because then well, that didn't work, let's go. So it's like Dennis said, all depends. But to me, like Walt was saying and Mark, spend money and time to learn the process, to talk to the grower, or to your customers, so exactly the solution you're bringing. Because again, we're not looking for just one transaction and that's it. We need to transform the way we do things, and it takes time. It takes habit. It sometimes you need to change the whole system. So that will be my opinion.
So Sharon, do we have more time?
Oh my gosh.
Because I have so many questions left.
I know. Unfortunately, we reached to the end of our time today, and I'm sure that there are folks around here that would like to stick around and ask some more questions. But I think, Vered, we need to really go into summarizing this morning session. I know we started a couple of minutes late, but maybe we'll just go around and have some final thoughts and advice for the Israeli entrepreneurs and the others that are on the line. I know at least Dennis has experience with Israeli founders and entrepreneurs. Some last words, and if we can, keep in touch with any of you and make introductions, that also will be fantastic.
Well, I'll just throw in that, happy to, Sharon, feel free to pass along my contact information, and as Luis alluded to, 2020 has been a different year to say the least. But, we intend to work more strategically and more robustly and really work hard to, as the year gets started. What's been encouraging to me is the amount of interest in ag tech has not waned, but as Mark said, there has been a lot of fatigue. And even prior to COVID, there was going to be a reset in terms of, how much time people have, how many resources they have. So we'll put in a plug for ourselves that a good landing spot that can help with connectivity, we think is important as part of the mix. And I hope you picked up from the conversation, Walt, Luis, Mark, myself, we all know each other, and grew up together, same sports, all the stuff. If you look closely, if you met us all personally, our eyes cross, there's a little interbreeding. So, and the reason I say that, it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's important, that issue of a trusted network. Mark knows when to call us. We know when to call Mark. Luis sits on our grower trial network, and we're really excited to have his expertise and experience. And he also understands that technology needs to scale. He is not paid to think about the almond guys or the lettuce, but we are. So, and he also understands that technology needs to scale. So and we're real. And I will just share this with you. When companies are from Israel, it does get people's attention. And so Walt and I are really committed that if you come to the center, you're going to get a fair shake, and you're going to get an up or down one way or another. It may not always be as fast as any of us would like, because we are working in different circumstances. But certainly we're looking forward to 2021, and we're really excited to be building our relationships more directly with Israel.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for this comment. I really appreciate it. We really have, I promised people that we'll take only 60 minutes, and I see people slowly dropping off the call. Really thank you to all the speakers. What I think my summary of this last 60 minutes is, as Dennis said, is know the people, build the trust. Luis said, be there for the long term, be there for the long run, build a partnership. Don't just try to sell. Try to understand, the different people you work with. Try to understand the economics, as Walt said. And Walt will share with us again later on the names of the books that he recommends to read. So learn the economics, learn your partner, and I think Mark said it earlier. It's enough that you have one successful pilot and the word will get out. People know each other. Dennis also mentioned that. And I think this is a good takeaway from this session. Thank you, Vered, for taking the lead on the conversation. Really appreciate Louis, Mark, Walt, Dennis, your time. We are here at the California Israel Chamber of Commerce for you guys. If you have any other questions, if you need us to make the connections, please reach out to us. You know where to find us. Thank you so much for today. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, who's on the line?
Wait.
It is, did you stop recording, Sharon? Not yet, okay.